Tim, and just go around the room, please.
Oh, Tim Sorcy, Finance Director.
Dennis.
Dennis Pollock, City Alderman.
Patrick Delaney, Committee Member, District 7.
Sue Shell, City Attorney.
Jake Katnos, Committee Member.
Jay Memke, Chair.
Ryan Hartman, Human Resources Manager.
Very good. We'll call the meeting to order at 1:31. Item number 2 is discuss and consider for approval proposed changes to the pay provisions policy. Ryan?
And there's really, I guess I would say, since the policy and the proposed schedule go in tandem, the policy hasn't changed based on what may or may not be decided today with the schedule, so they're just a tandem item. So there's nothing to discuss or propose. It was approved at the last HR, but I kept it on there in case it were to change based off of item number 3.
Okay, so can we hold that, and if there's no changes, we can just leave it as is? Do we have to take any action on it right now?
No, you want to do the survey and then come back?
If we have to.
Did we
Well, it hasn't been
send this
approved.
back to committee from council?
Yes.
Or did we? Okay.
No, we sent number 3 back,
So this shouldn't need action then?
unless we change something in 3.
Oh, I thought both of them were not approved.
What's going on with my computer?
They both were sent back, but they were okay with the policy, but the schedule was sent back to have more information.
The council didn't approve the policy though.
Correct. They both got kicked
Okay.
back.
So
yes.
it needs a new motion.
Yeah, I would just
Yes.
do another motion on it, just to be clear then.
And this isn't gonna affect item 3, so we can move past this quicker than we did. Okay. Look for a motion, Jay.
Patrick, do you have anything?
No.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the proposed changes to the pay provisions policy.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the pay provisions policy. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 3, discuss and consider for approval a new wage schedule to be effective January 1st, 2024, contingent upon budget approval. Further information forthcoming. Brian?
So it was emailed, I believe, first thing this morning, and you've got it in front of you.
I do know.
The cost analysis. Thank you to Tim for being able to get that together. This is a lot of information that had to be crunched. What we were given here, or what you have now in front of you, is 3 different options. Option 1 is what was proposed at the last HR meeting, where they were slotted into the next step. Option 2, because the conversation was longevity and experience, so we ran 2 different scenarios that talked about how long an employee was in their current position, and then a different scenario of how long they were at the city employed. Okay? So 2 different scenarios. The costing options. Option number 2 would be how long an employee has been employed at the city of Wisconsin Rapids.
No, that's the,
Option 3?
yeah.
Sorry.
Option 2 is the
Flip.
tenure in their position.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Where is an option 3?
They're all in those columns.
Option
Got
1,
it,
2,
got it,
3.
got it. I'm
Sorry.
looking at the bottom.
Yep. So yes, I flipped what I was saying, but
So option 2 is,
a difference between option 1 and option 2 would be the 308,000 minus 150,000
but option 2 is the tenor base? Okay.
in current position.
Okay.
Option 3 is total years.
And the total years was 1 step for
Yeah, so where the scale was, and actually I'll hand this out at this time, I think this would be good. So, oh, you've got it. So this has, in the, oh, you've got it.
I have the old one. And you just gave me a new one.
Okay.
Yep.
So in the current scale, in the red letters is the current scale, or the option 1 as proposed. As Tim was just referring to, so if somebody had been here in their current position, 10 to 14 years, they moved 1 step. 15 to 19 years, 2 steps. 20 to 24, 3 steps, and 25 and above, move 4 steps. Okay? So that's how you're arriving at the costing differential of option 1 to option 2 to option 3. So the yellow, the green, and the red have all 3 options laid out for you in front of you. Yep.
Yep, question. And I can do the math quick here, but in the first time we went over this, and Tim, I understand there was a crunch for time here, so it's not as laid out as over the course of, we have total increase from 2023 to 2028. This is looking at just the
Implementation year.
Implementation year. So we were at, over the course of the years that were drawn out on this first one, a $600,000 increase on what would have been option 1, which is 82, which is now almost tripled. So I would assume this number would essentially almost triple as well. So we would be looking at closer to like a 1 point.
Well, it all depends on where they are because, you know, the option 1 was like the 5, you know, moving progressively each step each year for most of the employees. You know, this is just placing them, but theoretically they would move the same steps. So a lot of those step increases would occur whether you have option 1, 2, or 3. I mean, obviously depending on if someone's at the top of the scale, then they wouldn't move anymore. But I only did it for the 1 year. That's all I had time.
Yeah, and I'm just projecting out because this going from, we were gonna see a total increase of $606,145 at option 1. So I would assume options 2 and 3 over that same time span would triple that number just as they are in the first year.
Not necessarily, because your step increases theoretically. So if someone was like, okay, it's step, say 10, and then in say option 2, they moved to step 14. Okay, it's like, well, the next year they would move a 1.5% step. So the step increase would be, I mean, a little bit more, but not to the, you know, magnitude of, you know, if they were not. So, but I know what you're saying, yeah, because obviously you have more built into the base, so your roll-ups, your cost of living adjustments or whatever that are applied there will be a little bit more. But theoretically in option 1 and 2, they could both, you know, the same employee could be moving 1.5%, so those steps would be the same, just a little bit more, obviously a little bit higher step, but it wouldn't be as dramatic of an increase from 1 year over the next. But
right, and I'll go, you know, some of this is stuff I said in a previous meeting, but it was a month ago now, but the control point will change during this time because it's based on market rates, so these projections long term are even harder to predict.
right,
The control point moving. Plus, I mean, on item 5 here, we're already doing another general wage increase. So I just feel like this could have a snowball effect with total compensation for the city where we're looking at numbers that we can't finance. I mean, we're already doing a bump to go to the wage study cost analysis, and based off of that, we're gonna do a general, probably do a general wage increase at 5 and do it every year, and then the control point's gonna move. I mean, this could really blow up, is my concern.
right. And I don't dispute that, but the council does have some control over the cost year over year of this, because, you know, theoretically, if the majority of the employees are getting a step increase, which is 1.5%, year over year, the council has control over what that wage adjustment is. So if you got into a year where like, okay, we just can't afford this, you don't necessarily have to apply the full wage adjustment. Say like if for this year, if it's 2.5% or 3%, you could just say, well, based on where we're at, what we can afford, we're only going to do a 1%. So you have flexibility in what that ultimate schedule cost is going to be based on what you apply to the midpoint each year. So.
But it almost cancels, I feel,
Yeah.
it cancels out the whole point
Well,
of
then,
going
yeah.
to a step process, because then you're saying, well, we've
Absolutely.
always given you a general wage increase for cost of living, or whatever you want to call it. But since you're getting that in the step program that we put the work in on, we're not going to give you this long-standing thing we've always done in other organizations.
Yeah, obviously. I'm just pointing
Yeah, I
out that
know.
there is flexibility within it. But yeah, obviously, if all of a sudden you applied less than what the market wage adjustment is based on our comparables, yeah, your midpoint, your market rate would start to get a little bit out of whack. But you know, I know like Portage County has a similar type of thing, and they don't necessarily apply the full market wage rate to the midpoint each year. So,
Right.
but no, I understand what you're saying.
We're talking about the STEP program in this instance, which I think enough has been said about it, but I hate to take away from this and then have to use the tool to manage it because we've increased so much. And this one is across the board for non-represented employees. You know, this one we're gonna move based on tenure, and then we would have to consider not a general wage increase for employees across the board because we went too far with options 2 and 3 year in our costs there. So I'm still on option 1. I don't have too much more to say about it, so I'll just, if anybody else does.
Patrick?
I just have a question. Okay, so you said 10 years is +1 step?
Yep,
So over 10 years, right?
10 to 14,
Oh, that's +1.
correct.
And then 15 to 19 is +2?
2, 20 to 24 is 3, and 25 is 4. Those would be the green.
I'm slow.
That's
Just
okay.
Give me 1 second. Okay, 10 years is +1. 15 to, I'm missing 10 to 14.
10 to 14 is 1 step.
Oh, okay. And then 15 to 19 is
2.
2. 20 to 25 is
4, 20 to 24 is 3, 25 plus is 4.
Okay, so my question is there anybody that is further down in steps, but they end up past their years? I don't know how to phrase this question. Say I'm at, just for rough numbers, say I'm getting paid $20 an hour right now.
Okay.
I've been here for 20 years, so I would get 3, but my job only pays $10 an hour. So I would get 3 steps, and just for simplicity's sake, now I'd get $23 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any cases like that in here where they're already past where they?
Oh, they're past where there's originally slotted, and then they get more stuff?
Correct.
More steps?
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, the steps are based on where they're slotted in the original option 1.
Okay.
So the additional steps would be moving from that point forward. So if, let's say, you're at step 10 and you've been here for 18 years, then you'd be slotted in step 12. That makes it.
That makes sense.
Okay. So it's taking the original option 1 where everyone was slotted, and that's basically taking what your current wage rate is and putting you into your grade that's closest but not below your current pay. And then option 3 would say based on your tenure, you get 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4 steps. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Is the green the, I wanna know the difference between the green and the yellow.
So the green is the steps that Tim was just referring to. If you're in the 10 to 14, 15 to
Yes,
19,
yeah.
that's that. The yellow is total years at the city.
No. in the
Yellow is
position.
option 2, and that's where the tenure in your position. Green is based on your tenure at the city, not necessarily in that position.
Why do I keep flipping that? Correct. Sorry.
So okay, this is how I think of it. The red numbers, that's what everybody is making right now, placed at their grade that they should be at. They maybe were at a different grade, but now they're at the grade they should be at. And we're gonna keep them in that step, but not have them get less money. So the first person, fire chief, 5142, so he would be at 5191, right? He's not
Correct.
gonna get less, okay, that's option 1. Option 2 is looking at the position, the people, how long the people have actually been in that position. Not, doesn't matter how long they worked at the city, but that they've been in that grade, in that position. So the first person, okay, fire chief, so, so we're treating these people, the green is as if these people were part of this salary schedule from the beginning. It's like, okay, if they would have been hired, if this would have been in fact when they were hired and put in that position, where would they be today? So if we had this 5 years ago, Todd would have moved to, well, he would be at step 7, right? So that's in that position. It doesn't matter how long you worked here, it's how long was each person in that position, because that's how it's going to be implemented, right? The person is promoted or the new hire comes in, we're going to look at that grade, what they're in, and then we're going to look at placing them. It doesn't matter how long they were at the city, it depends. The grade is the position. And then the yellow, oh no, did I just screw that up?
Yellow is the first option 2.
Okay, not the green, the yellow was the one I just, I just read. The yellow is in the position if we hired them under the schedule as we have now. The green is simply saying, it doesn't, you know, we're putting whatever you're making now, and let's look at how long you worked for the city. If you worked for the city for 25 years, we're gonna move you 4 steps in your grade, no matter how long you've been in that grade, or you know, anything like that. So the green is simply giving all the employees steps based on how long they've worked at the city. But it has nothing to do with really their placement in the grade. And that's why that option kind of, to your point, I think skewers, like let's say someone was just the fire chief for a year, but they've been here 35 years. We're gonna place them, you know, depending what they're making now, they might get 4 steps in there. They've only been the chief for 1 year, but they're gonna get paid like they've been the chief for 15 years.
I don't think that's a good option.
So that's the third option, so right. I think the second option is really the one that treats the present employees as if this schedule was in effect for them and, you know, tries to get them at least, I mean, is that a fair statement basically, right? I mean, and then the third option is more, well, everyone should get something, especially if you've been here a while, but it skews it because really they haven't been in maybe that position for a long time, or, you know, maybe they're kind of on the high end of the pay anyway, so anyways. Now that's thoroughly confusing.
So why is the years in total less than in the current position? You would think years in total would be the highest number.
But the years in total is simply taking their pay now and moving them over, not based on how long they've been here, right? Is that?
No, that based on how long they've been here. Yes, years in total. With this, years with the city in total.
Yep.
Is less than
Is that's option 3.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it less?
Yeah, why is it less than?
I think because we've had a lot of turnover and we actually
Yeah.
probably have a younger workforce coming in. And a lot of people moving into positions, but necessarily haven't had
And
the
the years
tenure.
in total had a maximum of 4 steps.
Right.
Whereas moving along the grade,
Mhm.
some people have been in 25 years, they're gonna be farther than 4 steps. Some people are getting more than, well, maybe, a few people may be getting more than 4 steps, so that's why they
Right.
might be farther.
Can I,
So the yellow is at current position, green is, yours was specifically this.
No, the red is current.
I mean,
Red-
well, the yellow is accounting for the current position.
Yes.
Current position, and as if they got credit for being in that position.
Tenure in the
Yeah,
current position.
Tenure in the current position at that grade, yes.
Okay. You can go ahead.
can I just
Yeah,
wanna.
go ahead.
So Patrick, this is, we went over this document last time, this is just looking at what the 2024 would be. You can see it almost tripled here in total cost. This was gonna be the cost of 2023, 2028, without this control point moving, which it will. So this cost would be higher just based on the control point moving. So you're looking at this increasing, not only based on the control point, but tripling if you were to look at, more than tripling if we move to one of these two. So you're looking at a cost of millions more, just on wages if we could were to go with option.
But it wouldn't triple because everyone's moving a step under each one. So you'd have to subtract out
Right.
the movement.
I mean, it's,
But that's to implement, that's implementation, one. for the
but after
2 years.
implementation, it maintains. They
Well,
continue to move
But when you
forward.
compare it to the other ones, those are moving steps too, so you can't just look at that and say, this is this much more. You have to account for that, you'd have to figure out the difference in the steps basically on the base, which isn't gonna be nearly, it's not gonna be a dollar for dollar amount.
It isn't, I mean, if this original layout, which hopefully we could have some similar by council, I hate to put more work on it. But I mean, it's a staggering amount, and then when you look at, this came out of a draw from a 5-year of just implementing this. The 84 is up on the front of this page. Now we're taking that number and upping it to 237 or 224. It's obviously going to affect the 5-year layout of this, plus the control point changing over the course of this. Plus we have to consider that we give general wage increases. I mean, this can snowball out financially, that we're setting up future councils with a financial problem where they may have to find a way to get wages under control to manage a city budget is my deal. I mean, I understand why we would want to look at tenure based on total years, options 2 and 3, but we're already taking a financial impact from this by just doing option 1, just trying to get this in place. And this 82,000 triples to go to option 2 or 3. And then it snowballs further in future years. Plus, we have to use a tool potentially to control it, which is not give general wage increases to people who aren't benefiting from option 2 and 3. I mean, that's the reality. So. I just think it needs to be looked at in its totality and not what it's going to cost us this year, which would already be an additional 150,000 in wages, and more because in item 5 we're discussing another general wage increase. say one more thing. If we ever have to go back on this, because we may, with what the cost is and setting in a wage schedule based on this, the morale of unwinding something that we're going too far on the employees and with their pay, I just think devastating, because it's not going to be looked at the same as it is for us. We're trying to balance the city budget. If we move in this direction and then 3 years down the road we realize we can't afford it and we gotta go back on this, I could see that being trouble, and none of us may be sitting here for those who decide that. So we're already going on an increase on option 1 that we know has a total cost of $606,000 over 5 years, but it's going to be more because the control point's going to change and there's general wage increases.
That's built into that figure.
That's built in?
Yes.
So we're already taking on $606,000 just for option 1. Option 2 and 3 will obviously be more than that, and I think there has to be a conversation around how we can afford that. If we can afford it, it's taking from other things that we can do in the city, other projects, other building roads, paying off debt. I mean, that's what these additional dollars, they're going to go to this instead of things that could go to those things. So I hope no one takes it as I don't think anybody should. Nobody has shouldn't get option 2 or 3. It's just based on what we're working with. In a total budget conversation,
Patrick?
So my thoughts on it are the steps are only like 30 to 60 cents per step. It's not like it's $5 a step. It's not a huge increase.
1.5%
Yeah.
between steps.
So it's not like it's a super big increase between steps. But those people that have been here for a long time serving the community, I think they should deserve the increase in their position that they're currently in, because each position, if you would go years in total, I don't like that, because your position that you move to should be at a different pay if you are working your way up the ladder, so to say. So I think that I understand what Mr. Cantona is saying. I like the option 2 in the current position, even though it's more money than the other one, which doesn't make sense to me. But I think there should be a definite difference between somebody that was hired a year ago and somebody that's been here for 20 years. And I think that this may, in the future, create lost jobs for other people, but to me, this is the most fair.
Why do you think this will create job loss?
Because of the increase in, well, like you had brought up last time, as people retire, it kind of resets the system. They start back out in the first step. Go ahead.
I appreciate what everyone's saying here, and it's like, from my role, I look at it as, I do have some concerns about wages and benefits increasing over time. It's like, you know, like for this year's budget, you know, with our net new construction, our tax levy can only go up $42,000 for operations. And when you look at 2.5% overall our employees, that's about 370,000. So you get into this, you know, sustainability of where, you know, our revenues sometimes aren't going to generate the amount needed to support just the inflationary increase year over year in the budget, even if we do the same exact thing we've always done. And so that is a concern of mine. You know, and I would say over the past number of years, we've benefited from pretty much flat health insurance premiums. But going forward, that may not be the case, and that's the other, you know, caveat, you know, is that at some point, regression to the mean, right? You know, that you could see health insurance premiums go up more. I mean, we've actually had reductions, which has helped.
What was it this year, do you remember?
5% this year, and but the previous 2 years were
No increases?
actually a slight decrease. So I'm just putting that out there as that, you know, that is a concern that, you know, just our base wages is, you know, sometimes can be difficult, you know. And so just my 2 cents from a financial perspective.
Go ahead.
Well, that's all I needed to hear on top of what I already think, so I'm gonna make a motion to go with option 1 from the 2024 proposed wage study cost analysis.
I'll second it. There's a motion and a second on the floor. Any more discussion? Anything? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. We had 5. Item number 4, discuss and consider for approval the setting of salary for the elected position of mayor for 2024 to 2026 term. Brian?
The memo that was sent out last week proposing keep the salary for the 24 to 26 term at $81,138, and with the general wage increase of whatever the percentage would be per city policy would take effect on January 1st. That would be for the position of mayor.
So if I understand correctly, if we do a general wage increase, the elected officials are also included in that. Is that right, Tim?
The what?
If we approve a general wage increase, elected officials, attorney, clerk, mayor, those are all included.
Correct.
Okay. So, and I guess the other question is do we have any comps for the mayor's position?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think when it's in there, we're on the high median end currently for municipalities of our size and population.
Okay. Nothing? Jake?
Yeah, I have thoughts on this. I find it interesting that the mayor's position is essentially the most important position in the city, right? You look at any city and you can consider that. Everybody is important, but especially elected official-wise, the one that all the department heads report to. I'm not proposing any changes today, but I do find it interesting that that person has reports that they make less than their reports. So I don't think we should propose any raises to that position at this time. The other concern I have is just on the candidates that we've seen really in the past. I've been following this for 6 years. I think I'm in my 3rd term, but I think you could go go back further than this, a decade, and see that we're not getting that many people from the private sector who are coming out and running in these elections of, in my opinion, quality candidates. And that's nothing to say against our current mayors. I just think.
Patrick ran for mayor.
Did ya? Sorry about that, Patrick. But there's been some other elections. I just we're not really getting that many primaries. We're not getting that many people from the private sector coming out saying, I want to lead the city and do this job for this compensation. It's a concern of mine that I don't think needs to be addressed right now, but it's something we may be looking at down the road. But those are all comments just saying that in regards to the mayoral salary, and I think for now we can keep them in line with the increase for the rest of the elected officials, but just things to consider for down the road.
Patrick.
When you did the comparisons to other cities, are these all cities without city administrators?
Correct.
Okay. So
City administrators I didn't look at because that's a different.
yeah, that takes most of the job away from the mayor. So okay, that's all. That was my only question.
I think the only thing I'd like to respond just a little bit to Jake is, one, you understand the qualifications for mayor are the most votes. I mean, we've got people here with skills that, so.
I understand.
And the other thing is I think just because of the nature of the job, it's not something that you could, it's not going to be a career, which I think eliminates a lot of people.
That is correct, yeah.
So, and I guess for myself, I'm comfortable with where the wages are, assuming they get what, if or any wage increases we do for the rest of the group. So, do we have to take, if we leave this, do we have to take any action soon?
What does the agenda item say? I think it just defaults to the current rate, so I guess.
No action needed?
Right.
Okay. Comments, questions? Can we move on?
Even if we don't change it, I still think we should take a vote on it.
Yeah, you can, yeah.
All right, is there a motion?
Because technically you're setting it.
I'll make a motion to continue with the salary as is for the mayor position for the 2024 to 2026 term.
Second. There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 5, discuss and consider for approval a general wage increase for non-represented employees of the city to be effective January 1st, 2024. Ryan or Tim?
So I had originally in the memo put out 3%, being with the COLA, give or take, being at 3.2%. The 3% recommendation just goes to, I think the bargaining units are coming off 275, but in 2024, and they maybe got some things up front as stated in the memo. That's why we landed on the 3. But I know budget-wise that's also a different side, and I guess I let Tim speak to that if he has any insight on that or input.
Do we, before we go, cost of living, do we know what it is this year?
3.2 for Social Security.
Tim? Talk about the budget a little bit.
Right now in the budget, I have 2.5%, and that mirrored what the labor contracts were for 2024. So that's what I built into it. But 0.5%, I don't think is going to dramatically impact the budget. I mean, obviously it'll be more, but I don't have that calculation between a 2.5% and a 3% at this point.
So, why would we give our non-represented employees a higher COLA than the unionized employees?
I think we're going into contract next year.
Is that why we would do that?
Yeah, I think, well, didn't one of them get a 3.5 at one point?
Those,
Like
yeah.
a year or two,
I think you're
I mean, because we were kind of
We took it on
buying
the
back
front
some
end.
increased contributions towards dental and so on. And then the unions also got increased critical care pay for firefighters. I mean, there were some other things that
Ambulance
were put
pay.
in the contract that non-union never gets. Any other increases other than that, so I guess that could be a reason to have it be more.
And both of those contracts have positions like that in them, that, like, fire department has
Yeah.
ambulance pay.
Yeah.
Police department has, like, field training officers, there's a little bump in pay that.
Right, we increased a lot of those in both of the contracts, because they hadn't been increased for some time, so they got more than just the 2.5%, the unions.
Okay. And they are negotiating for 2024, we're looking to set a rate for this now.
So are we,
That's right.
does this rate we determined today, will that be considered in negotiations for the represented employees?
I misspoke, they have a contract through 2024.
Right.
Sorry about that.
Not really, it's more the public safety comparables, you know, outside. I mean, the internal is part of it. But it's, I would say, definitely doesn't define what it is, or it's not a huge part of it, a very small part of it, I would say.
Okay.
And I haven't started looking at what things are looking for I mean, that's a ways away, so.
Right. I just figured if I was a union rep and I was looking at what the city was giving out to non-represented employees, I would go at or above that, but.
They do.
If you added up
Yeah,
everything they
exactly.
got over time and the non-unions, I think we have a good argument for, you know, that they're pretty equal and public safety probably just come out ahead, but.
Well, we'll leave that for the negotiation, I suppose.
Yeah.
I guess my only concern is Tim has budgeted 2.5% and
You just changed it to 3%.
Well, we did.
that's all you
not
have
yet.
to do.
No, no, we haven't yet, I mean.
Yeah, I don't think it would be that dramatic, so I think we could.
We have numbers on that?
You just keep piling it on him, don't you?
I'm sorry, it's just, it's budget time and it's.
Maybe, Tim, you could walk his dog afterwards, too.
No, he's
don't
not a
have to
good
do
walker
that.
anyways. I don't know, my dog, he,
Oh, I was like, Tim's not a good one.
Tim's a great walker. No, I don't, I guess this is gonna be finalized at council, I already know there's some conversations of taking the red pen to some things, so I don't know where we end up on this, I just wish I knew what the difference between 2.5 and 3 was. I don't, you know, we'll see.
It's gotta be about 85,000, isn't it?
Rough estimates, even with,
Do you have anything, Patrick?
I can get that number for you.
Well, Tim's working on that.
So, I really don't, I think that, does anybody know where Waterworks and Lighting is planning on?
That's this week.
We don't have any numbers, any ideas on,
Budget, we're doing the budget at Water and Light tomorrow.
did you come up with anything, Tim?
Oh, as far as the, you want me to do it right now?
Oh, I thought that's what you were doing.
Oh.
No. I guess, while we're, do you have anything else?
No.
Okay. I guess for full disclosure, I just want everybody to know, I need to take responsibility for this project getting so late and long in the game. While a lot of people have dedicated time, it's really put a lot on Tim and Sue. So I guess it's not unfair, but it's unjust, or it's basically my responsibility. But feel bad when we say, you know, Tim, can we have that? Or can we do a 5-year or whatever? So just on full disclosure, that's on me going forward. You know, I think once we get a plan established, that'll be, you know, we'll have a system in place and that'll be good. But I just want to say we've been running a lot of numbers, or Tim especially has been running a lot of different scenarios, numbers, the longevity, the tenure, the years in current position to get us where we're at today. So, you know, I get it. I know, you know, you want to see it, but, you know, like I said, ultimately that's on me, so.
And I think we would see it either way in the
Yeah.
budget.
Yep.
That's why I don't hesitate. I know we need to make the decision on this, but I hate to make decisions and then get to the larger discussion of the budget and
Sure.
roll things back. But
One of, I guess, if I, going back, and it was already in motion, but my thought, you know, part of me thinks, back to what Patrick said, most likely is to recognize the longevity of some of employees that have been here 10 to 25. The way the market, you know, the market, people staying at a employer for 25 years now is probably going to be a thing of the past. It's starting to become a thing of the past already. We're not going to see that much of that. So I don't think going forward, you know, when you read all the statistics, people will go to the next best thing. 2 years, 5 years. They're not looking at being vested in their retirement. It's like, well, I'll just do it myself and take it to my own financial planner or whatever. That's kind of the way of the world now with this next work group, be it good, bad, or indifferent. So there's a big piece of me that wants to do something to recognize the long-term employees that we have from everywhere, from City Hall to the garage to the wastewater treatment plant, because from a HR personnel perspective, if you don't have the right people, it doesn't matter if you have the funds available to build the road. If you're designating the funds to build the roads, buy the equipment, do whatever, but you've got not a good operator or loader in that piece of equipment, and they break that piece of equipment, and now you're coming back in 2 years asking for another, I'm making things up, but another $175,000 because your backhoe did whatever. Are we, you know, so I guess that's just to get that, you know, off my chest, to say there's a personal or personnel factor, a compassion factor from an employee point of view that I just wanted to put out there, so.
Good.
I think that was a great analysis, and in comparison to what you're talking about, the current situation and with private employers, you know, a lot of what I see is standard to get 100% vested in your retirement. You got to stay 5 years.
Yep. Right.
If you bounce, you're leaving with none or half.
Right.
And they're starting to go more towards none of your vested.
Yep.
401k. So as for a sell point for the city, and why I think we offer good jobs is some of the things that you just went over, and the fact that you can escape that matrix and the unpredictability of the private sector by working for government. And but like you said, personnel is key to everything you do.
Right,
So,
and right now it's a dogfight between public, private, anywhere, to find the best employees. You know, it really is. It's there, for certain things, there's not as many skilled options out there as one might think. Be it the trades, or be it computer analysis, data, or sitting behind a desk in an office. It's just I'm seeing more colleges now, which I was an advocate for years, but now they're actually teaching these interpersonal skills classes. Basically how to teach these young students or young adults how to talk to somebody face to face and making eye contact versus being on their phone. And that's it. Now those are going to be accredited courses, and I'm like, that's what we're up against now, trying to, hire folks. And I think the department heads are doing a great job finding the right people, but it's becoming tougher and tougher to find them. So to retain them is the biggest hurdle then from a HR perspective. But
Ryan, do you know, not to put you on the spot, but off the top of your head, roughly, how many job openings do we have right now?
Including PD and fire, 6.
It's quite a few for an organization this size. I'm just saying, historically, you just didn't see that. Patrick?
Did you do any analysis of inflation over the past year?
No, I was just going off the cost of the COLA. You know, last year I think that number was floating around like 8 to 9%.
8.7.
8.7. So to see it at 3.2, I just kind of went with, well,
Do
that's
you
a
know
lot
what it is,
better
Tim?
than 8 point, but I did not. No,
For what next year's gonna be?
For what it is right now, do you know what it is?
The federal government is, well, they go mostly for Social Security and the federal employees, but they're doing 3.2.
Tim?
Now, this is for like employees, obviously not excluding the represented employees. So a 2.5% is about 222,000, and 3% is about 266,000. So about a 44,000 change difference. Now that's based on the old salary schedule, so that'll be a little bit higher. You know, as you know, from a just a slight increase off the bigger base off the new steps, but that kind of gives you.
Can you do that again?
266,582 for a 3% and $222,017 for a 2.5%. Now that's all the employees other than the represented employees, but not necessarily all that comes out of the tax levy, because some of those are wastewater employees, which is supported by the wastewater revenue, but that kind of gives you an idea of a ballpark, I guess. Just on a rough calculation here.
Yeah, okay.
I'll make a motion to approve a general wage increase for non-represented employees of the city to be effective January 1st, 2024 for 3%.
Did you?
I'll second it, and I'll just say I think at council, if item 3 is going to get pulled out, it's going to affect item 5, and we will be in a position that night to discuss all these things on the floor. If for some reason what the committee approved tonight gets pulled out and option 2 and 3 gets discussed, it's going to change everything drastically. So I think 3% makes sense with what was approved by the committee on item 3 today. And I'll be voting for it, but if things were to change at common council, I think it's a different discussion.
Did we vote? I don't think we did.
Nope.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Item number 6 is adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. We adjourned at